Hello folks, back to the channel. Thank you very much for visiting me once more, and for newcomers, you're most welcome. Thank you so much for visiting me on this channel. David John Harris, elect. I'm rather serious today because I'm joyful as well. So it's hard to know what emotions I'm going through, but I want to tell you a story. And this story, it happened back in 2021, the summer of 2001. And I had the good fortune to meet the LABRATS. Ever heard of them? The LABRATS. They're a dedicated bunch of guys and girls who suffered much in the after effects of Britain's nuclear bomb testing out there in the Christmas Islands. In the Pacific Ocean, I believe it's called. They told me of the sailors who were told to stand on deck of their ships, dressed in shorts and singlets, and to shield their eyes as the nuclear bombs were tested and exploded. They were LABRATS. They were test subjects. What does the radiation do to the bodies and the minds and the brains? They told me of the great flash of light and the great deafening sound that followed. They told me of the cancers and deformities in their later born children and the multitudes of deaths at birth. They told me of their fight for recognition of their plight from the government and the Ministry of Defence, of their pooh-poohing and the name-calling calling them conspiracy theorists. But the opening of the wall of silence and the denials has begun to crack. After 70 years, this story I'm going to relate to you is from a man called Humphrey Nemore, and he's a Daily Mirror reporter, and it's the Daily Mirror campaign for the truth, and it's seeking the truth, and it's found a crack in the armour of the Ministry of Defence and the governments for the last 70 years of denials and name-calling. British troops, this is the story from Humphrey Nemore. British troops may have been used in human radiation experiments. Now I know they were, but in this story it says may have been. Now he has put it in inverted commas. Up to you what you decide. Okay, the government has admitted for the first time the revelation following 7 decades of denials about what really happened to the men of the armed forces ordered to take part in the Cold War nuclear weapons trials. It came from a leaked letter from a government legal department. Senior civil servants at the Ministry of Defence, I want to get this right, instructed lawyers to write to representatives of the nuclear veterans. The latest letter states some information may have been recorded by scientists carrying out radiation monitoring rather than medical professionals who would have been more concerned about the health of military personnel. It appears to confirm the Mirror's 3-year investigation into how thousands of troops, civilians and Indigenous people in Australia and the Pacific were subject to orders for regular blood and urine tests, as well as chest x-rays to monitor the effects of the radiation. The results of the testing are missing from personal files. Isn't it funny how personal files disappear when there's a problem and they want to hide it? Well, with many found on secret databases at the Atomic Weapons Establishment. So they didn't go completely missing, did they? So many have been found now. Locked from view from among Britain's nuclear secrets. Tory Grandee Sir John Hayes quoted from the letter in the House of Commons and has demanded the Defence Secretary John Healey come to Parliament to explain. Wow. MOD officials last night claimed the letter was referring to dosimeters, those that meter the dosages that the men of the armed services and civilians were subjected to, given to some servicemen to monitor radiation and later logged in medical records. They did not explain, however, if so, why that would indicate a lack of concern for their health. The leaked letter was greeted with tears and anger by veterans and families who have long battled the MOD, the Ministry of Defence. Veteran John Morris, who was repeatedly blood tested and x-rayed while serving in the laundry at Christmas Island and later lost his son to lung deformity, said, "They've snuck it into a legal letter, like the cowards they are. But I want to hear from them, and for them to say it to our faces. For years the MOD have pooh-poohed us as eccentrics and troublemakers, calling us conspiracy theorists. We've had to fight every step of the way." Alan Owen of the campaign group LABRATS, that was the group I told you I met back those years ago, 4 or 5 years almost now. He said, this is Alan Owen, "It's a U-turn we've waited 70 years for. It says what our families have always knew. The men were guinea pigs for the scientists. There was no informed consent, no right to withdraw, no concern for their health. The medics weren't told what was going on, but the MOD knew, the Ministry of Defence knew, the scientists knew, the officials knew, and they've repeatedly briefed ministers to deny it. That criminal cover-up is now being exposed. The Prime Minister must now sit down with us and talk about a solution while there's still enough survivors alive for it to count." Yes. Lawyer John McClue, who is leading a £5 billion legal claim by veterans and their families, said there is a moral and legal distinction between ethical medical monitoring, which is what should have happened, and treated the men like lab rats to test the effects of their weapons. Our servicemen were the only people who could be ordered to stay in an area of fallout for up to a year, 12 months at a time, ordered to give their blood and then ordered to sign the Official Secrets Act. We will invite the MOD and the Ministry of Defence to mediate a solution so that these national heroes finally get the answers they deserve. Yes. They were wonderful people I met. Friendly, helpful, and joyful despite the problems, the loss of children, the deformities of their children, the deformity of lungs, the inability to walk or think properly, and many of the men died of lung cancers and other cancers all around their bodies, and it was heartwarming to see how they stood up to it all, and they all join up once a year from all over the world, in England or elsewhere. I met them in England, in Sand Bay actually. It's a Ponting camp, and we're all there, and there was even ladies that had been removed from Christmas Island, the indigenous population. They were all removed out, and these ladies, Polynesian ladies, they had the grass skirts on and they were dressed and they danced the hula dance, and it was fun, but it was despite sufferings. Good for you, LABRATS, good for you, and good for you, ladies. The revelation comes 7 decades too late for most of the 40,000 British and Commonwealth troops and their families who've spent lifetime fighting for the truth. Many of the original campaigners have died. Yes, well, it was 70 years ago, and they must have been 18, 19, 20-year-old when they were subjected to these tests. So many of the original campaigners have died, and the studies show they suffered high rates of cancer, blood disorders, and even suicides. Well, they commit suicide because they're in so much pain. Their wives have reported 3 times the usual rate of miscarriage, and their children show 10 times the usual number of birth defects. That's what I was saying, wasn't it? These people were subjected to experiments with radiation, and they were ordered to do so, and because it was in the military services, they couldn't say no. Around 4,000 veterans are still alive in the world, worldwide today. 4,000. Half in the UK, and an average age of 86. Now think about it. If it was 70 years ago, and they claim the average age is 86, were they 16 at the time? And up to a dozen chronic health conditions each. You see, even though they were happy people, they have up to a dozen health conditions each. Chronic health, so long-lasting health conditions each. So Keith Starmer met campaigners in opposition and told them, "Your campaign is our campaign." That was when he was in opposition. A Ministry of Defence spokesman said, "These claims are not true." Film badges were issued to some nuclear test veterans to record their possible exposure to external radiation. The Ministry of Defence spokesman says the claims are not true. We gave them a badge on their chest to monitor the nuclear fallout effects on their bodies. Yes, and they proved that they were contaminated. So they are true, and this idea from the Ministry of Defence to deny is done by civil servants and generals and whatever in the armies and in the navy, and it is totally wrong. It is totally wrong, and these people deserve to be recognised as truthful people who suffered greatly at the hands of the then Ministry of Defence and their scientists in using recruits, and there were not recruits that volunteered. Remember, it was conscription in those days. They were conscripted into the navy. They were conscripted into the armies, and it had no right to do it to them. They knew there was radiation problems. They knew what it would do. They'd seen it in Hiroshima, when America dropped the nuclear bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They saw the devastation it would do. But the British wanted their bomb, and so the officials used human guinea pigs to see the effects it would have. And it still goes on. Do not believe that COVID was not manufactured and spread deliberately, because it was. And so I would like to hear your comments, your support for these people, these brave people. I'd like to see, although it's the wrong thing to say, but the like button to show your support for the LABRATS. And I'd like you to press, if you will, the subscription. It doesn't cost you a penny. It doesn't even cost you a cent. It doesn't even cost you a rupee. It's totally free to subscribe. So please do so. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps me to research this information and understand what's going on, and then divest it to yourselves, because you're not going to get it from the usual traditional media, are you? So please press that subscribe button, and please send your comments in. I enjoy reading them. I reply to many of them, but when I get loads of comments, and I'm busy also finding out this information, researching this information, and proving this information so you're not being told lies. So please subscribe and please comment. And until the next one, and this news is happening all the time, I'm going to say goodbye now and have a safe day, have a happy day, and from me, from DJ, goodbye for now.